With Monster Hunter World comes Master Rank, a challenge that will test every hunter, but with the right gear and builds, hunters can overcome anything. I'm Darcblade, and we're back with even more amazing builds for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at 4-set beginner builds for the Gunlance. The Gunlance is a powerhouse of a weapon, although it comes at the cost of mobility. It's able to deal damage through shelling attacks that deal fixed damage, or utilise slashing attacks through the various lance moves. Whilst yes, its mobility is an issue, it nonetheless comes with one of the best shields in the game, able to block most incoming attacks. The builds I use tend to focus on all these aspects, either combining all three or focusing on just one of them, for more specialised builds and playstyles. Now, a disclaimer though for this series, as Iceborne is still young, most hunters may not have been able to farm everything they need for the most high-end game builds, so this series will instead focus on 4-set builds, highlighting some of the amazing armour designs while at the same time helping new Iceborne players get through to the end of the main story. As a result, these builds will not feature Elder Dragon loot or augmentations, and most of the customization will come in the form of different jewels, charms and weaponry. So the first build I use is the BANBARO Elementless build. This build is an all-round build, making use of the BANBARO armor, combining the non-elemental boost skill with the offensive guard skill. So for this build you'll need the entire BANBARO set, which includes the BANBARO Helm Beta, Mail Alpha, Vambraces Alpha, Coil Beta and Grease Beta. I'm also using an Artillery Charm 3, and for my weapon I'm using the Glutton's Fang 2, which is the Great Jagras Gunlance. As for your jewels, you've got a fair few to play around with here. Firstly, I've gone for an Elementless jewel for that non-elemental boost. I've then gone for a Sharp jewel to provide us with that protective polish. I've then combined this with Enduring jewels to provide us that item prolonger. I've then gone for a Magazine jewel to increase the amount of shells we can have on our Gunlance. I've then gone for some Vitality jewels to max out our health boost skill, a Guardian jewel to max out the offensive guard skill, and finally I've gone for some attack jewels to increase our attack boost, and finally an Iron Wall jewel to increase the guard skill. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health when you're on a hunt and taking all the relevant consumables. You have an attack of 690 with white sharpness, you have 5% affinity with no element, and for your shelling level and types, you have normal level 6 shells. As for your defense, you're fairly strong especially against water and ice, but you're fairly weak to the other elements unfortunately. As for the skills, you have attack boost level 4, attack boost increases the attack of our build, but at level 4 it also provides us an extra 5% affinity. You have health boost level 3, increasing our health to that potential maximum of 200. You have artillery level 3, artillery basically increases the damage of our shelling attacks. Attack boost does nothing to increase the damage of our shells, but artillery makes up for this. You have Item Prolonger level 3, Item Prolonger increases the duration that items and buffs last, and I've taken this mainly to use in conjunction with the Protective Polish skill, as it will make it last longer. You have Offensive Guard level 3, which means that when you perfectly block an attack, it will increase your attack by a certain percentage for a small amount of time. You have Resentment level 2, this is a byproduct of the gear, but increases our attack when we have a red portion of health on our health bar. You have Mushroom Mancer level 2, this is a byproduct of the gear, but it allows you to consume raw mushrooms for different effects. You have Capacity Boost level 1, this increases the amount of shells we have on this build. You have Guard level 1, increasing the effectiveness of our block. You have Speed Eating level 1, again this is just a byproduct of the gear, but allows us to consume potions and other consumables at a quick pace. You have Protective Polish level 1, this allows you to put a protective coating over your sharpness gauge, preventing any sharpness loss for a small duration of time, and this is increased even further thanks to Item Prolonger. This is kinda needed on a lot of Gunlance builds as you burn through your sharpness very quickly, especially with your shelling attacks. And finally you'll have Non-Elemental Boost level 1. This increases the attack of a build so long as the weapon you're using has no element or that said element is hidden, as is the case with the Glutton's Fang 2. So there you have it. As you can see, it is a pretty balanced build. It has some offensive options combined with defensive options. It's not the best in any department, it's more of a jack of all trades. It can make use of the Swing Lance style of gameplay, which utilises using the lance attacks combined with shelling attacks. And if you want to, you can make use of pure shelling attacks, although this build does lack the focus for that style of gameplay. But nonetheless, this build is quite strong, especially if you can keep the offensive guard buff active. It's also very easy to make and is a great early game Gunlance build. But anyway, let's move on to the next build, which is the PAOLUMU Shelling build. This build uses the entire PAOLUMU set, which surprisingly comes with the artillery skill built in, combined with the Crimson Hornet, which is the Viper Toby Kodachi Gunlance that comes with paralysis, and more importantly, long level 6 shells, making this a shelling build. So we'll be mainly focusing on shelling attacks over anything else. So for this build you'll need the entire PAOLUMU set, which includes the Luma Hat Beta, Mail Alpha, Van Braces Alpha, Coil Alpha and Greaves Beta. I'm also using a Handicraft Charm 4, although if you're going through Monster Hunter World Iceborne story for the first time, this will only be level 3, but it shouldn't matter too much. You should pretty much have the same effect, you'll just drop a few points in sharpness. And finally for your weapon you have the Crimson Hornet, which is found in the Viper Toby Kodachi tree. As for your jewels, you've got a fair few to play around with here. Firstly, I've gone for a Handicraft jewel. If you have the Handicraft charm at level 3, having an extra Handicraft jewel will ensure you increase your sharpness to that purple sharpness level. I've then gone for magazine jewels for the capacity boost, a sharp jewel for protective polish. I've then combined this with enduring jewels for that item prolonger. I've then gone for vitality jewels to max out the health boost. I've then gone for charger jewels to max out the focus skill, and finally I've gone for a protection jewel, but this one is pretty much down to personal preference. This provides us a little bit of divine blessing. Anyway, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You'll have an attack of 633 with purple sharpness. You have 15% affinity, although this build is focusing purely on shelling attacks, so you don't really have to take into account affinity, as shelling attacks deal fixed damage. You have a paralysis rating of 330. This is kind of a byproduct, but it can be useful to this build, as when you start performing lance attacks, you can potentially paralyze a monster, leaving them open for your shelling attacks. As for your shell types and level, you'll have long level 6 shells, ensuring that we do the most damage with our charged shelling attacks. And as for your defense, you're strong against water and ice, neutral against thunder and dragon, but weak to fire. As for the skills, you have Handicraft level 5, although like I said, if you're going through the story for the first time, this will only be level 4, but it shouldn't matter too much. You have Windproof level 4, this is a byproduct of the gear, but increases our resistance to wind pressure attacks, so it's great against flying wyverns. You have Health Boost level 3, Focus level 3, Focus reduces the amount of time needed to charge up our shelling attacks, which is key for this build. You have Artillery level 3, Item Prolonger level 3, Divine Blessing level 3, this is a combination of byproducts of the gear as well as jewels. This allows us, when we take a hit, to potentially take reduced damage, so it's great for survivability. You have Stamina Surge level 2, a byproduct of the gear but allows us to recharge our stamina gauge more quickly. You have Master Mounter level 1, again a byproduct but allows us to mount monsters more easily. You have Capacity Boost level 1 and Protective Polish level 1. So there we have it. This personally is one of my favourite builds and is very strong. This is thanks to it being built all around the shelling attacks. Of course, if you don't like the shelling gameplay style, this may not be the build for you, but if you do, if you make use of charged shelling attacks, thanks to the fixed damage, you can go through hunts quite quickly. On top of that, the Crimson Hornet, the Viper Toby Kodachi Gunlance, is actually one of my favourite gunlances in the game. Not only does it come with long level 6 shells, which are perfect for shelling builds, but it also has that added paralysis, so if there is ever a point where you are in a tricky situation to reload your gunlance, you can potentially paralyze a monster by utilizing your lance attacks. So I'm sure you'll be seeing this Gunlance return when we talk about the endgame mix sets. But anyway, let's move on to the next build, which is the BRACHYDIOS Agitator build. This is a swing lance build making use of the BRACHYDIOS armor set and the increased Agitator skill. So for this build I'm using the entire BRACHYDIOS set, which includes the Helm Alpha, Mel Beta, Braces Beta, Valves Beta and Greaves Alpha. I'm also using an Attack Charm 4, although this will be only an Attack Charm 3 if you're going through Iceborne story for the first time. And for my weapon I'm using the BRACHYDIOS Buster 2, which is found in the BRACHYDIOS Gunlance tree. As for your jewels, you've got a few to play around with here. Firstly, I've gone for an artillery jewel to increase the artillery skill of this build. I've then gone for a sharp jewel to provide us that protective polish, a shield jewel to provide us that guard up skill. I've then gone for vitality jewels combined with charger jewels for some health boost and focus. And finally I've added an enduring jewel for a little bit of item prolonger. Now a note here, you may have to replace one of these jewels if you want to get your attack boost to level 4, but as always the choice is up to you. Anyway, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which as always is 200 health when you're on a hunt. You have an attack of 614 with white sharpness. You have 5% affinity, which will be higher when Agitator kicks in. You have a blast rating of 540 with normal level 6 shells. As for your defense, you're strong against fire, thunder and dragon, but weak to water and ice. As for the skills, you have Agitator level 7. Agitator basically increases our attack and affinity when a monster becomes enraged. And thanks to the Clutch Claw, you can now control how often a monster becomes enraged. So for most of the time you should have this skill active. You have Attack Boost level 4, Health Boost level 3, Artillery level 3, Blast Attack level 2. This is a byproduct of the gear but increases the blast rating of the weapon we're using. You have Focus level 2, Item Prolonger level 2, Blast Resistance level 1. Again, a byproduct of the gear but helps when it comes to our defense by increasing our blast resistance. You have Stamina Thief level 1. Again, this is a byproduct but allows us to exhaust the monster more easily. You have Capacity Boost level 1, Guard Up level 1. Guide Up allows us to block unblockable attacks, and you'll have Protected Polish level 1. You'll also have the BRACHYDIOS set bonus, BRACHYDIOS Essence, Agitator Secret, allowing us to get the Agitator skill up to that maximum of level 7, whilst normally it can only get to level 5. So as you can see, this is a little bit of a jack of all trades build utilising the BRACHYDIOS set and that Agitator skill. The Agitator skill you want to try to keep as active as possible to get the most out of this build, but like I said, utilising the Clutch Claw should allow you to do this. Now you may have noticed I haven't maxed out some of the skills, such as Item Prolonger and Focus, but this is because I was going for a jack of all trades build with this set. But nonetheless, it means that you can pretty much make use of the Charged Shelling playstyle or the Swing Lance playstyle. The choice is up to you. But anyway, let's move on to our fourth and final build, which is the Acidic Glavenus Maximum Might build. This build makes use of the entire Acidic Glavenus set, which allows us to increase the skill level of Maximum Might. And as the Gunlance doesn't really make use of stamina, at least not that much, when compared to other weapons, it means that it can take advantage of this skill more than some of the other weapons in Monster Hunter World. So for this build you need the entire Acidic Glavenus set, which includes the Acidic Glavenus Helm Beta, Mel Beta, Braces Beta, Coil Beta and Grease Beta. I've also gone for an Artillery Charm 3, and for my weapon I'm using the Hidden Cannon 2. This is found in the Nagakuga Gunlance weapon tree. As for your jaws, you've got a little bit to play around with here. First of all, I've gone for Mighty Jaws to increase the Maximum Might skill to that maximum level 5. These also come with byproducts in the form of Vitality Jaws. I've then gone for a Magazine Jaw for that capacity boost, a Sharp Jaw and Enduring Jaws for that protected polish combined with Item Prolonger. I've then gone for an Elementless Jaw to provide us that non-elemental boost, and then finally you'll have 2 jaw slots to play around with, to which I've gone for a Steadfast Jaw to max out the stun resistance skill of this build, and a Protection Jaw for a little bit of Divine Blessing. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You'll have an attack of 591 with purple sharpness. You'll have 20% affinity, which will actually be 60% affinity when you're on a hunt, and you have maximum stamina. This is thanks to Maximum Might. You have no element, and you'll have wide level 5 shells. As for your defense, you're strong against water and ice, but weak to the other elements. As for the skills, you have Maximum Might level 5. Maximum Might increases our affinity by a set percentage when our stamina is full. Also, this has changed slightly since Monster Hunter World. Now, when you lose stamina, it takes a certain amount of time for the effect to kick back in after your stamina has been replenished. But at level 5, this ignores it, making it pretty much work as it did in the base game. You also have Stun Resistance level 3, pretty much allowing you to ignore all stun effects. Health Boost level 3, Handicraft level 3, Artillery level 3, Item Prolonger level 3, Effluvial Resistance level 2. This is a byproduct of the gear, but allows you to resist the effluvial effects of the Rotten Veil and Valhazak. In fact, if you're going up against Valhazak, I would recommend putting an extra point by using a Miasma Jaw to max this out, but the choice is up to you. You'll have Capacity Boost level 1, Stamina Surge level 1, Divine Blessing level 1, although I've added 2 extra points to Divine Blessing on my mantle, so when you're wearing the mantle it'll be Divine Blessing level 3. You'll have Protected Polish level 1 and Non-Elemental Boost level 1. You'll also have the Glavenus set bonus, Glavenus Essence, Maximum Might Secret, allowing us to get that Maximum Might skill to that potential level 5 instead of just level 3. So there we have it, that is the Acidic Glavenus build, making use of the Maximum Might skill. This is pretty much a Swing Lance set, as shelling attacks cannot crit, and so any crit skill such as Maximum Might, Weakness Exploit would be wasted if you're primarily making use of shelling attacks. But like I said, this build utilises the Lance attacks over the shelling attacks, so it can make use of affinity based skills like the Maximum Might skill. Now it's a shame that the Nagakuga Gunlance doesn't have a higher attack, but it kind of makes up for this by having a high affinity combined with natural purple sharpness. But once again, this could be considered a little bit of a jack of all trades, thanks to the weapon being a non-elemental weapon, which means that you don't have to take into account a monster's elemental or element weaknesses when you're going on a hunt. So there we have it, those are full set beginner builds that I use for the Gunlance in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now of course there are a lot more endgame mix sets to come, And as I always say, you don't have to use what is shown in these videos. Use what you want to use, as most tasks in Monster Hunter World Iceborne can be taken on with any item or gear set. Also, builds taken from previous seasons can still work in Iceborne, at least for early game. They'll have the DPS, but they may lack the survivability. But anyway, I hope you found this video helpful or informative, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you beginner Iceborne builds for the Gunlance in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.